Hi. How are
Hi.
you? How's everything?
I think it's fine. I can tell it's fall because
Yes.
it is that time of year when my sinuses glue themselves shut, no matter how much medication I take before I go to bed.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
It's only for like 2 weeks, but
Ugh. Yeah, change of seasons is tough on respiratory systems for sure. Well, um, yes, it's October, and welcome to Goodnight, Mr. Holmes, a podcast about the Granada Sherlock Holmes, which ran on ITV in the UK between 1984 and 1994, and ran on Masterpiece Mystery in the US around the same time. I'm Laura.
and I'm Rachel.
Today, we are back to Granada and we're looking at episode 26 in the series called The Disappearance of Lady Frances Carfax. And I see Carfax and I'm like, that means something completely different.
Yeah, that's when you look at the history of your car.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So at 221B, Holmes is reading a letter from Watson. Watson's been on vacation, and it begins, "My dear Holmes, today I walked 14 miles along rough terrain and hardly a twinge from either my leg or my shoulder,"
I
which
can't remember which one was injured, so we're gonna do both.
I love that they're going with both wounds for this episode. And he goes on about how gorgeous the landscape is and how he'd love for Holmes to join him because while nature isn't Holmes's thing, which is weird for a scientist, the guests at the hotel are interesting. And Holmes seems to kind of roll his eyes at that. And to me, Holmes is looking exhausted.
Yeah, I have that note too, and he sounds exhausted.
Yeah, his face is more lined than ever, and he's haggard. So, of course, I went to Bending the Willow. And it turns out Brett had been brought home from a holiday abroad with his son to attend rehearsals for this episode. Apparently, he had been in a depressive state. That's why he went away. And Hardwick noticed in rehearsals that Brett was tentative and uncertain in his delivery. But he pulled it together for filming. But this shot was really kind of indicative of where his head was at.
Yeah.
So the original story takes place in Switzerland, but the Granada budget didn't stretch as far this time as it did for Reichenbach. So they moved the story to the Lake District, much cheaper. Watson goes on to describe the dramatis personae at the hotel. There's Major Schlesinger, which I will never be able to pronounce correctly, invalided home from the Boer War, a man of quote unquote moral splendor. His nurse, Miss Calder.
Yeah, this was the second Boer War. Watson references Ladysmith. He was injured in the defense of Ladysmith.
Oh, okay.
The siege of Ladysmith was held between October 1899 and February 1900. The British had brought in a number of troops. The Boer republics said the British were trying to incorporate them into a united imperial South Africa, according to Wikipedia. It's believed the real motive of the British was to gain control of the recently discovered gold mine near Johannesburg.
Bingo.
So they had brought in troops to the Boer republics, said, "Send your troops away, please." The British said, "Haha, no." And so the Boers attacked. They drove the British back into Ladysmith, surrounded it, and held a, what is it, 5-month siege.
Oh, God.
Reinforcements did eventually come. There were some skirmishes during those 5 months, but food was scarce enough that they were eating their horses. So they hadn't quite gotten to the point of cannibalism, but it was clearly going to get there.
Yeah, it was Kitchener involved in that.
Not that I saw, but I was specifically concentrating on Ladysmith.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a great, so one of the Kingsman movies, there's a great opening that takes place at a camp that's being run by Kitchener, who is played by Charles Dance, who is very, very good at playing these reprobates.
Yes.
With a lot of power.
Yes.
And it just, it also makes me think of the Kitchener stitch in knitting, which they've renamed, but I forget what they've named. I think it's just called the grafting stitch or something like that.
Nobody's going to remember that.
No. Anyway, so we've got Schlesinger. I'm calling him the Major through most of this.
Okay, sounds good.
Invalided home. His moral splendor. He's got a nurse, Miss Calder, who is probably in love with him. And then there is the lady, Frances Carfax, who Watson describes as modern, coming from an ancient line of English eccentrics. Yesterday, as if to confirm the general opinion of her oddity, she declared that she would sail herself to church across the lake. So
yeah, Watson is Holmes is like folding this letter from Watson into like I just wrote down like a paper airplane, a woman sailing a boat. Why I never.
right, yes, yes, and each of the characters that Watson describes seems to get a figurine assigned to them from Holmes.
Yeah, this is why Watson can't ever leave.
No.
Left alone for any significant period of time, he starts playing with dolls and making origami vehicles.
Right. So there's a pewter soldier for the Major, a carved stone bird for Miss Calder, and a glass mermaid for Lady Carfax. So we then see Lady Carfax indeed sailing across the lake, and she's sailing the little boat herself. She is played by Cheryl Campbell, who is probably best known as having played Eileen in Dennis Potter's Pennies from Heaven. But I knew her as playing Jenny Little, the sister of the runner and missionary Eric Little in Chariots of Fire.
Oh.
Yeah. And, we see missionaries are a big part of this story.
Yeah.
So Lady Carfax moors her boat and she walks to the church, and back at 221B, Holmes is doing this origami thing. And Watson goes on to say, she appears to care not a jot what her fellow guests make of her, and seems quite insensible to the vivid impression she creates wherever she goes. And the crowd laughs a little as she struggles a bit to get back on the boat, but Watson says they had no reason to think Lady Carfax wouldn't manage the return journey the same way she managed the voyage out.
Right.
But we see a man on horseback pulling up as the hotel carriage pulls away, and he looks sort of menacing. He's got this full beard.
Yeah, he looks like he's out of Deadwood.
Yes. He's got a hat like that too.
Yeah.
He stares at Lady Carfax, who looks back at him. Meanwhile, Watson's walking back to the hotel instead of cramming himself into the carriage with Miss Calder and the Major's wheelchair. So when Watson returns to the hotel, Miss Calder and the Major are waiting for Lady Carfax to finish sailing back. They're watching her make her way across the lake, and Lady Carfax kind of gives a wobble, and the Major starts shouting for help. And at 221B, Holmes has folded Watson's letter into the shape of a little boat into which he places the mermaid figurine. As Lady Carfax goes over the side of the boat into the lake, Holmes shakes his little paper boat so the figurine goes tumbling out as well. I just thought that was a cute little scene. As Lady Carfax splashes around in the lake crying for help, Watson says in his letter, he was helpless. I've never felt so powerless in my life, as powerless, so I thought, as the old soldier in his wheelchair, who had only been able to shout, it seemed, for help.
Yeah, I just want to interrupt and say we had talked before about the rational dress movement.
Yeah,
part of the reason women were pushing for it. This takes place. Well, I didn't actually look to see when it takes place, but it was published first published in the Strand in 1911. So we're out of the Victorian age. We've gotten rid of a lot of the Victorian trappings, but there's still the corset. There's still the long skirts, and the skirts were not made of the thin material that clothing is made out of nowadays. They were heavy. Right. So when they got wet and you fell in the water, even if you did happen to know how to swim, the weight around the constriction around your abdomen, plus the heavy waterlogged skirts hampering your leg movement, you were almost certainly going to drown.
And we're in 1911, we're in the first year of George V's reign, and if you look at photos of his wife, Mary of Teck, she's corseted. Oh my God. Yeah. She's got a waist that's like, the size of her elbow.
That was a thing for the high fashion ladies in society. And I think we mentioned that too. Like the average woman didn't have the corset cinched so tight she couldn't breathe because most women had to work.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have to work, you were one of the fashionable ladies, you would have that ridiculously thin waist.
It's a lot like the Kardashians now with their waist trainers and stuff, because they don't really have to do anything difficult.
They don't have to do anything. Yep.
But I also noted that, so Watson's saying he felt powerless, helpless, never felt so powerless in his life. And I'm like, you're Watson.
Yeah, just jump in the freaking
You're
water.
of action. What is going on with you?
The water's attacking her. I will shoot it.
So the next bit is really extraordinary. The major whips off his coat, pushes his wheelchair quickly towards the dock, and then falls out of it into the water. The wheelchair falls too. And he begins to swim towards Lady Carfax. And Watson relates, as with many men, I have noticed a weakness in one part of the body is compensated by great strength elsewhere. Unable to walk, Schlesinger was yet able to swim powerfully with his arms alone. And the major rescues the lady along with the help from the men at the hotel. But Watson says, now all parties are recovered. It is reported that Lady Frances is resentful of her rescue, as if her suffragette principles had been somehow compromised.
That pissed me off.
Yes. Oh, there's so much about this story that pissed me off.
Oh, yeah, all of it. I did not get rid of the story. She's angry that the culture she lives in requires her to wear clothing that will kill her if she falls in the water. Like, she's not angry at her rescuer. She's angry that society would rather she drown than be able to rescue herself.
Yes, yes.
When we say men keep centering themselves in any story, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
Not angry at her rescuer because it betrays her suffragette principles. This isn't about you.
Right. No, it's not. And Watson goes on to say, the major's the hero. Miss Calder is more in love with him than ever. The major is played by Julian Curry, who had a huge part in the show Rumpole of the Bailey.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a big hit in my in-laws' house because they were both lawyers. I don't know if your mom, as a lawyer, liked that show.
We never saw it.
Okay. Rumpole refers to his wife as she who must be obeyed, and that's how my father-in-law used to refer to my mother-in-law. He meant it lovingly.
Yes.
The major, it seems, now that he's back from the war, is a missionary whose church, Christ the Healer, works primarily in the Andes in Peru. So he's an impeccable character. Watson makes his way back into the hotel after all the kerfuffle. He's greeted by Lady Carfax, now wearing a sweater. Major Schlesinger is avoiding me. The poor man is embarrassed by his own heroism. Perhaps he now thinks I'm obliged to contribute to his work. Men have such extraordinary weaknesses, don't you think?
Yes. Also, this isn't resentment towards her rescuer.
No.
He's avoiding me.
Right. Yes. Watson politely agrees. And Lady Carfax asks him to go on a walk around the lake. And while they do this, back at the hotel, Miss Calder is embroidering, and the major is reading a letter.
I don't know what Miss Calder is doing with her embroidery, but I'm really tempted to tell her that her thread is obviously tangled in the back, and she needs to stop pulling on it and untangle it.
Yeah. Oh, God. No, this is TV. So the major's reading this letter, presumably from his church. He's going to be giving a lecture at the hotel tomorrow about his work, hoping to raise money. Lady Carfax walks along with Watson by the lake. They each have a walking stick, which is unusual for ladies to have. And this actress is kind of giving manly strides as they pass by some ducks. Just her whole appearance and position.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to emphasize the suffragette aspect of things.
Yes. She normally wears white color, like light colors and a lot of white.
Yeah.
White was the color of this.
Yeah. And I mean, this episode, just like the men of the time, were kind of like, they found the suffragettes kind of amusing and foolish.
Yeah. Oh, you want to have rights? Ha ha ha, you silly women.
Stop throwing yourselves in front of the horses. Lady Carfax tells Watson that she frequently shocks her brother, the Earl of Ruffton. She notes that she spent every summer of her childhood by this lake and that the Earl is coming to visit her tomorrow. Meanwhile, that bearded guy on the horse is kind of skulking around, and upon seeing him, Lady Carfax grows angry. Damn him, she mutters. Damn him! And she takes off running while Watson stares at the man, puzzled. The man urges his horse away, and Watson runs after Lady Carfax.
Yeah, she ran away back to the hotel, not towards the guy to chase her.
No, she does not like this man. At 221B, Holmes appears to have cleaned himself up. His dressing gown is gone. He's back in his usual black coat and a small bow tie with the points hidden under his collar, his hair slicked back again. He's kind of playing with his figurines. At the hotel,
he picks up a chessboard piece of Black Knight.
Oh, that's a little bit later.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. At the hotel.
Oh, so this is where my note, the playing with dolls is getting really stupid, came in then.
Yes. Oh, it keeps going. Yeah, he keeps doing it though. At the hotel, she's greeted by the major, and we see them having tea together while Watson's at another table writing to Holmes. So no, the major's not avoiding her. And she's not resentful of him in the least. This is all projection by Watson.
Yeah.
I must confess that her behavior continues to fascinate me. I grant that her reaction to this unknown horseman was extreme, but many of her reactions are. Had she known him, I wonder? What lies in her past to prompt this fear of him? In looking for an explanation, I am placing some hopes in the visit we expect this afternoon from her brother, the Earl of Ruffton. By all accounts, his oddities are of an entirely different order from those of his sister. Where she flouts convention, he has raised the conventions of a former era to the status of a faith. As for myself, I notice an increasing indifference to the natural beauty which lies about me. My thoughts return constantly to the Lady Frances. Something about her life prompts my sympathy, some unhappiness I can sense, which I would dearly like to dispel. It is to be hoped that her spirits will be lifted by her brother's visit, for she remains subdued from yesterday's strange encounter.
All I can think of is this attractive woman. What a shock.
Yes, Watson's in love again. And back, so Watson just keeps taking these walks and then coming back to the hotel and writing Holmes. And on one of these walks, Watson spots this man on horseback again. Who is he, Holmes? Why does he not wish to make himself known? And this is where, at 221B, Holmes picks up a knight from a chessboard, the horse-shaped.
The Black Knight.
Yes.
He's a dark horse.
He's a dark horse, yes. Why indeed, he asks. And he puts the knight on the table with the other figurines and thinks for a bit. And then he picks up a block and holds it up, contemplating it, and says, Watson, you're a brick. And I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I looked it up, and it either means you're a stand-up guy.
Yeah, strong.
Or it means you're a fucking idiot. So
yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Probably a little of both.
Probably. Watson, you're a Watson.
Yes. At the hotel, the Earl is arguing with his sister. The Earl is played by Michael Jaston, whose most notable IMDb fact is that he was beaten 130 times at his grammar school. Known for his abuse. Yeah.
Bullying is apparently just sort of a thing.
Oh yeah, bullying by the staff, the headmasters, by everybody. It was just, and if you survived it, great. If you committed suicide, then you were weak.
Yeah.
So the Earl and his sister are arguing over money. She claims her allowance is too small, and if she's been overspending, it's because someone has been in need. The Earl mocks her, quote, famous heart of gold and says there isn't any money. The estate is crumbling. There's a family of owls living in the East Wing. He asks, what is it this time? Helping penniless poets in Islington? Islington is a neighborhood in London that has long had an association with the arts. It's not quite Soho or Bloomsbury. Mm-hmm. So it's not quite like Greenwich Village in New York, but it's more like pockets of Brooklyn where writers tend to congregate.
Yeah.
Like Williamsburg or Park Slope or Carroll Gardens. Lady Carfax accuses the Earl of being cruel. The last 15 years of my life have been wretched, and now, at last, I have a chance to make something of it, she says. Doesn't that have any meaning for you? At which point Watson walks by, having heard all of this. The Earl closes the door, and Watson continues into the lobby.
Yeah, Watson was just standing.
Right, yes. The Earl and his sister continue arguing behind the closed door. Trouble is, you won't take advice, will you? The Earl shouts at her. You've been offered everything and turned it all down. What have I been offered? Lady Carfax says. Marriage, good marriages. Of course. At this, Lady Carfax laughs. To be the unpaid slave of a titled yokel who has Yeah, I know. Yeah. Who hasn't even read a book and thinks Bach is something that terriers do. What have you got against me doing this? I want to get this out of this miserable mess my life is in, and to be my own woman, for God's sake, and to fulfill just a portion of my life. Why
Yeah.
do you...
Spoiler, never actually find out what she means by any of this
No, we don't.
because she's a woman, and so who
It
cares?
doesn't matter. Yes. Why do you always hold me back?
Because I am a man.
Yeah, because I can. She's pleading with him. Think of it, just one payment, one, and you could see the back of me forever. And then we're at the lecture, where the major is speaking while Ms. Calder is handling what looks like an early version of a projector or a slideshow.
Yeah.
She's switching
She's
out
got a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, she's switching out plates from the projector while the major narrates what's on the screen. Basically, a lot of llamas. And I was just like, ugh, missionaries.
Yeah. Please help with my religious colonialism.
Yes, scourge of colonialism, spreading disease, guilt, shame, 1,000 other terrible things. The audience claps politely, and Watson, as a man of his age, looks approving of this work. And even Eric Little, the runner, that the actress played the sister of, he was a missionary who went to China and died in a POW camp. Yeah. Back in the argument room, is what I'm calling it now, the Earl and his sister are still at it. I'm sick of you coming to me with these crackpot notions. You know my responsibilities. If you hadn't thrown away all your chances, you wouldn't be in this position. I've had enough. You know what you have to do. Grow up and do it. My last resort, my very last resort. How can you suggest it? And the Earl storms out, almost knocking over the major as he's being pushed by in his wheelchair. The Earl drives off in a beautiful gold-lined carriage, pulled by 2 stunning white horses, the sale of one of which would probably give Lady Carfax exactly what she needed.
Yeah, no kidding.
Lady Carfax goes to the hotel desk and asks about the lecture. She's told it was over half an hour, that it finished half an hour ago, and the major is moving on to another town. And then the bearded man comes in over the threshold. He calls to her, and she stares at him, and then she shouts, "Leave me alone," and runs up the stairs. Watson tries to confront the man running after him. In his letter to Holmes, he says, "I've no doubt you will tell me my fears are unfounded, Holmes, but the repeated appearance of this man has cast a shadow over her life, which, try as she might, she cannot lift." Back at 221B, Holmes drops the mermaid figurine onto a newspaper on the table.
But then you didn't get the metaphor.
Right. Then he picks up the newspaper and stares at it. Just then, Mrs. Hudson comes in with the evening edition, which Holmes grabs. He stares at that and then yells, "Mrs. Hudson, fetch me a cab." And Holmes goes to some sort of archive guarded by the police. So it's a police archive, presumably.
Yeah.
We see him surrounded by books and papers as the guard is dozing.
Smoking. Don't smoke in the library.
No! Oh my God.
I think it's old books.
Holmes leaves before the guard wakes up and takes a cab back to 221B, yells at Mrs. Hudson to send a telegram to Watson as soon as the telegraph office is open.
She yells back, "I am not your secretary."
Yes.
Somebody's rent is about to go up again.
And, he puts a piece of paper in her hand, and all he says is, "Read, read." And she does. "Grave danger, Lady Frances. Stop. Never let from sight. Stop. On my way, Holmes." So we see Watson receiving the telegram from an out-of-breath bellboy. He runs into the hotel and yells at the concierge, shaking the telegram, "How long has this been here?" Not waiting for an answer, he goes in search of Lady Carfax, goes upstairs. He reaches her room, but it's empty. And just
there's like a dress or something
lying on the bed.
Lying on the bed, like, oh no, she dematerialized.
And just then Holmes enters the room as well.
Yeah, this would have been so much more effective if they hadn't done what they did in Hound and kept interrupting Watson's story to put in these silly little scenes of Holmes that add Nothing.
Nothing to the narrative.
If
No.
they had just, if they had just trusted the story and the audience, instead of being like, oh no, it's been 30 seconds since
We've
Holmes
seen
was on
Baron
screen.
Brett. Yes.
What if the audience has forgotten this is a Sherlock Holmes story? We must remind them. It could have been so much better. Like Holmes suddenly appearing would have been this dramatic moment. And instead it's like, yeah, of course he's there.
And he says, disappeared, Watson. Disappeared. Like, no shit. They go downstairs. Watson is peppering the concierge with questions. Did she pay her bill? Did she order transport? She took none of her luggage. The answer to all of these is no. Holmes is down on the dock where the sailboat is not.
This, I have a note that this is badly edited because at the end of Watson's questions, he asks, where's Holmes? Like, in her room where you just left him? But no, he's apparently teleported to the end of the pier.
Right.
This was badly edited.
And it gets worse. Holmes says, it is a possibility. What, says Watson? The skiff, Watson, the sailing skiff. It's not here. Precisely. It is possible that there lies the Lady Frances Carfax's silent road to Aronside. It is the nearest railhead, as you know. You don't mean that this fellow abducted her by boat, Watson says. And Holmes plucks at a fiber caught on the wood of the dock. Silk. It is one of the three more likely possibilities. Best French silk, dove gray. She had a gray silk shawl, Watson said. That will tell us nothing more, Holmes says, casting the fiber to the ground. What are the three possibilities, Holmes? Watson's really losing his mind here.
Yeah.
With what did she wear the shawl? Over her outside clothes. The three possibilities.
How else would she wear the shawl?
She must have run away with her intended abductor, Holmes says. He may have abducted her by boat or some other means. She may, given her emotional condition, have been deceived into going with him. I can hardly believe that. She was terrified of him, believe me.
She just took the boat and left on her own. But apparently that is not one of the possibilities.
It is not one of the three possibilities. I believe you, Holmes says. A stray chicken in a world of foxes once she is gobbled up. She is hardly missed. Come, Watson, our horses must be saddled by now. Horses? I have been somewhat extravagant in my choice of mounts, but a delay must be dangerous in this matter. We should be at Rufton Hall at dusk. And they go off on admittedly two very lovely horses. At Rufton Hall, the Earl is stony-faced and angry. I don't see what interest it could have for you, sir, he says. Considerable interest, I assure you, Holmes says. One of the most dangerous classes in the world is the drifting and friendless woman with no one to protect and guide her. She is the inevitable inciter of crime in others. I know.
She's the inevitable target. She's not inciting anything.
No, she's just living. And she's not necessarily friendless either. She just doesn't have any male protector.
Yeah.
I treat the disappearance of your sister with utmost seriousness. Do you think I do not? I am merely suggesting that it is frivolous to keep me from the substance of your quarrel. It was this quarrel, after all, which immediately preceded her disappearance. Holmes sits down. It might have something to do with a drunken poet she once knew. What? The Earl turns away from the mantel where he's pouring himself a glass of port. I understand from my colleagues she may have seen him recently. Green? Thought I'd seen the last of him. I sent him packing 15 years ago. What is his connection with your sister? He used to court her. Great brute of a fellow. She wouldn't have anything to do with him. The Honorable Philip Green. Never was a title so abused. He went to the dogs completely. Drink, gambling. He ended up destitute in Islington, pretending to write poetry.
Something about violence, right?
Yes. There was something about violence. Somehow, yeah. Of course, Frances became interested in him as soon as he'd lost everything. How did you send him packing? Holmes demands, and here it is. He was a violent fellow, and he drank, says the man, having himself a nice glass of port. I had heard talk of prosecution, debt, assault. I gave him £100 and bought him a ticket to Australia. Show his face around here, and I'll set the dogs on him. Now, says Holmes, you quarrel with your sister. The Earl takes a sip of port. Money, he says. She wanted money. She has none of her own? I make her out an allowance out of the estate. It's modest, but you've seen the place.
There's £1 a week.
Ah, okay. She has no assets herself, Holmes asks. Yes, she has, the Earl says. I told her if she wanted money, she could sell this. And they go into another room where the Earl pulls a book from a desk and says, it's a priceless collection. So the book is a catalog of jewels, which apparently Lady Carfax owns. And it's pretty impressive. There are sapphire necklaces, earrings, tiaras, rubies, diamonds, just set after set after set of them. It was designed for the French royal family by Fragonard. We acquired it all at the Revolution, and now it's hers. What I have is owls. Owls in the East Wing. Want to see the owls?
Yes, I do want to see the owls. Take me to the owls.
And Holmes is paging through the catalog. Where does she keep them? Does she travel with them? No, says the Earl. Well, then where are they kept? The Earl hesitates, and Holmes slams the book shut. My lord, your sister has vanished, he snarls at him. How and why we do not know, but I have reason to believe that she is in the gravest danger. If we were to know the whereabouts of the jewelry, we might have some chance at saving her. The Earl heaves a sigh. The Oxford and Lombard Maritime Bank in Pall Mall. Thank you, Holmes says, and he and Watson leave Ruffton Hall. There is no Oxford and Lombard Maritime Bank, of course, but there is a Lombard Odier and Company, a Swiss bank headquartered in Geneva, which had ties to the French Revolution that are way too complicated to go into.
Oh, cool.
France, at one point after the Revolution, annexed the Republic of Geneva, and the bank was there. So anyway, at the bank, 20 minutes after it opens, and the bankers have taken their seats at their desks, Holmes and Watson come barreling.
I see the bank uses an open floor plan for its employees.
Yes, well, but they do have the tellers behind the bars.
They do.
On the side, yes. Yes, and there's a big balcony running around the top to further off offices and I guess vaults within the bank.
Yeah.
So they come tearing into the bank, and Watson says she may have already come and gone. The bank's been open for 20 minutes. They look around the lobby, which is, it's huge.
Yeah.
They go upstairs, looking out over the balcony. Lady Carfax is nowhere to be found. I've been quite blind, Holmes, Watson says. I had the evidence in the palm of my hand. If anything has happened to her, calm yourself, my dear friend, Holmes says. Just then, Philip Green enters the bank. As Watson points him out, a man in a bank uniform approaches Holmes. May I help you, sir?
Yes. Yeah, he's been eyeing Holmes and Watson because they're looking all around the bank. Like, no, we're not casing the joint.
No. Yes, please. I wish to see the manager, Holmes says. It's part of a deal. It's a family matter concerning a deposit at the bank. My colleague, but Watson isn't there. He's back downstairs, striding towards Philip Green. Watson, Holmes yells, and it just echoes terrifically around the stone and the marble of the lobby. You, sir, Holmes says as he gets in close to Green. I, sir, Green says.
Watson says.
Yes, Watson says. You, sir, what have you done with the lady Frances Carfax? Watson is furious, and he shoves Green. I insist upon an answer. And Green shoves back.
And then a riot breaks out.
Yeah, it's just mayhem. So Watson throws his walking stick to the floor, and also this echoes very loudly. He tackles Green, at which point the police whistles start blowing, and the bankers are rushing all around the lobby. There's just general chaos and mayhem as the bankers try to grab both men and separate them. Holmes yells, Mr. Green, please excuse my friend. He spent the night on the Carlisle Express. Which, I'm not quite sure what that's. He starts coming down the stairs, and then we see Lady Frances coming through an archway to the edge of the balcony with a box in her hand. The Carlisle Express, I looked it up, isn't real either. But there was a settled Carlisle line that ran from Glasgow down to Leeds. And then, presumably having to take another train from Leeds to London would make a very long journey. Yeah. And possibly could excuse you attacking someone in a bank. Lady Frances freezes on the balcony, staring at the scene unfolding below. And a lot more walking sticks are clattering to the floor as this keeps going on. Philip sees her and calls, Frances, Frances! Holmes looks up at her, running towards her on the balcony, but she disappears.
Dematerializes again.
Yes, Holmes runs to a set of doors, turns around, and then we're back at 221B, where Philip Green is sitting on the wicker couch. Watson's got his back to Green. Holmes is looking over the whole scene as he stands near the entry to his bedroom. Watson gives a deep sigh. I blame myself, he says. No, Green.
Blame you too.
You need not. Nevertheless, I do. We all bear equal blame, Holmes says. She has disappeared again, and that is that. It is pointless to dwell on it. Our task now is to find her. Mr. Green, let us go back to that moment by the lake yesterday morning. I was out riding in the dawn, and I saw the skiff sailing across the lake towards Aronside, Green says. And you realized that it was the Lady Frances.
So she did just take the boat.
She did just take the boat. She was not abducted. Was she alone? Holmes asks. Yes. Please continue, Holmes says. I managed to board the same train, Green said. I begged her to speak to me. I told her how long I'd traveled the world and had become a very rich man. I told her I'd never stop loving her, and she could have whatever she wanted. I can see her now. She sat saying nothing, smiling like a sphinx. No, she said. She wanted to go her own way.
Maybe she just doesn't want to stalk her.
Right. You can go your own way. When we got to London, I followed her as best I could, but she seemed determined to be rid of me. I lost her somewhere near Southwark Bridge. So Philip Green is played by Jack Klaff, Klaff, who did a lot of acting on BBC and other shows in the 1980s and 90s. So if you know, any of these shows that you and I have seen quite a few episodes of, he's probably been in them. He also had a bit part in the first Star Wars movie, the real first Star Wars movie.
What was the part?
Just a minor flunky off to the side. I don't even think he had a name. Like Red 4 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Southwark. That is most interesting, Holmes says. Why, Green says. I am reliably informed that his haunts are usually west of Westminster. And Watson perks up at this. Whose haunts? Holmes, of course, doesn't answer. How did you come to be at the bank, he asks. I realized that she would be needing money when she was in London, and I know the address of the family bank well enough. I had the wild idea of enlisting the manager's help. Do you know where she is, Mr. Holmes? No, I do not, Holmes says. And it just dawned on me that the reason he knows where the family bank is because he was paid off.
Yeah.
By the Earl. Where do you think she is? Watson says. And he's sounding irritated at Holmes for not telling him everything again. I believe that though through our efforts to save her, we have driven her into the hands of her worst enemy, Holmes says. Also, not answering any of Watson's questions. But we saw her free, Watson protests. A person may walk over the edge of the cliff because they have been invited to gaze at the moon. Her eyes may be open, but she is, I believe, at this moment walking into mortal danger. Schlesinger, Watson says. And we see Lady Frances entering a townhouse and calling Schlesinger's name. It's gorgeous interior. Lots of cherry-stained wainscoting. Beautiful. This last week, Holmes is saying, I have sought to acquaint myself with the world of apostolic missions. I have also made a search of the records at Scotland Yard. Schlesinger is also known as the Reverend Joseph Cubbington, Amos Callow, the Dean of Maseru, and Edmund, the Bishop of Lima. His real name, in fact, is Peters. He's a confidence trickster known at Scotland Yard with the uninspired logic of that place as Holy Peters. What is not yet suspected, but incontrovertible nonetheless, is that he is a murderer. Peters' specialty is the beguiling of single women with private means by playing on their religious and charitable feelings. So Lady Carfax is walking around Schlesinger's house, looking at the many curios he's collected in his travels, while back at 221B, Holmes continues. Helena Rosenblum had been engaged in charitable work for 10 years when she met Schlesinger. He inspired her to devote her energies to a new mission in the Andes. Miss Rosenblum changed her will, said goodbye to her former life, and boarded the SS Alamira at Glasgow, bound for South America. She was lost overboard the first night at sea. The SS Alamira docked at Liverpool for the family to retrieve her effects. Schlesinger also disembarked. He went to ground in the Lake District, where he met his next intended victim, the Lady Frances Carfax. So Lady Carfax has meanwhile found some papers in Schlesinger's house with his aliases written on them. So helpfully laid out for her to run across. She backs away from them, kind of falling into the wheelchair that's parked there, while Schlesinger pops out from another room. He's walking. Lady Carfax stares at him. Some hours later, Holmes comes into 221B saying, "At last, gentlemen, at last." And he lays out a diamond choker on the catalog page where there's the photo of it, so that we can see it's the same thing. "Where was it pawned?" Green says. "Riley's of Stockwell. It was, by my calculation, the 27th shop I tried. Riley has received 2 sentences for the receipt of stolen goods. He will cooperate with us," Holmes says. "What does this mean?" Green demands. "What does it mean?" "Please, Mr. Green, this is pointless. Don't torture yourself." "You think this torture is self-induced? The thought of Frances in the hands of criminals? Such thoughts come unbidden, Mr. Holmes." Green is really shouting here. "They break through the strongest defenses the mind can raise against them." "Calm yourself, Mr. Green," Holmes says. "Calm yourself. If she is still innocent of Schlesinger's true identity, she may well be safe for a time. And if not, then it is clear that he cannot let her loose without his own destruction. We must continue to hope that she remains ignorant of who he is," Holmes says. Green turns away. 15 years, he says. "I knew I could never come back until I'd made something of myself. Perhaps it was foolish to think that she would look kindly on me after all these years." "You think?"
It might be more the drunken violence that turned her off.
Yes. "I was ridiculously encouraged by the fact that she was not married." Oh, come on, not everything is about you. "And now my stupidity has driven her into the arms of a murderer. What can I do?" Holmes doesn't respond, because Green is an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
"Is there nothing I can do?" Green asks. "Does Schlesinger know you by sight?" Holmes asks. "No." "Ah, well, then there is something that you can do, but it will demand great patience." "I have waited for 15 years, Mr. Holmes," Green says. Yes, we know. "Schlesinger has had a fair price for the jewelry, and no questions asked. He will most certainly return to Riley's shop, or the Rosenblums would have changed the will." Holmes writes a note, and he gives it to Green. "Now, give this note to Riley. He will let you wait at the shop. Maybe a long wait, but you must possess your soul in patience." And Green grabs his coat and starts for the door. Holmes stops him. "Above all, no violence," he says, and shoos him out the door. At the shop, Green is waiting. It's dark. He's peering through a secret little door within a door, and he sees a lady laying out some kind of string of gemstones. It's Miss Calder. So they're in on it together.
Yeah, we don't like her anymore.
No, we do not. Miss Calder leaves the shop, presumably having sold the necklace. Green is following her. She goes into a garage that's attached to an undertaker's, and she's talking to a woman who's holding some kind of receipt log. "It's late," Miss Calder is saying. "It should have been there by now." "I dare say," the other woman says. "It took longer, being out of the ordinary. The address, dear, remind me." And then the woman spots Green watching them, and he lifts his Deadwood-style hat. "Yes, sir. Can I help?" the woman says. "Argyle Street," Green says. "I'm looking for Argyle Street." "There's a post office around the corner. Try there," the woman tells him. And so he leaves, and Miss Calder eventually leaves. He continues following her. She goes into a townhouse, and then he sees a hearse driving a coffin nearby. He stops to watch the undertakers unload it, and Miss Calder steps out the back door of the townhouse to greet them and take possession of the coffin. Apparently, Green rushes back to 221B because Holmes is yelling at him, "Stop, Mr. Green, we can do nothing without a warrant." "This is intolerable," Green shouts back. There's so much shouting in this episode. "Until we have some wretched signature, we can do nothing. Meanwhile, these fiends can do with her what they will." "Are you certain that you've told me every detail?" "Every detail, I promise." Green is still shouting. Holmes is scribbling yet another note, ripping it off his notepad and giving it to Green. "Then take this note to Scotland Yard. They will understand the urgency of it." And am I to wait there for the warrant? Green asks, turning to go to the door. You will not get it today, Holmes says. What? Green turns back to face Holmes and looks utterly devastated. And the bass drum begins to sound at this point. Just a single strike. Boom.
And it just sort of continues.
Yes. Some delay is inevitable. A magistrate must be found. The process of the law can be encouraged but not goaded. Holmes scolds. Tomorrow may be too late, for God's sake, Green says, leaning over Holmes, and the bass drum continues to strike. Mr. Green, everything that can be done will be done. Go! And Green goes out, slamming the door. Tomorrow may indeed be too late, Watson says. I'm well aware of it, Holmes snaps, and again with the bass drum. Arm yourself, Watson, Holmes says, looking none too calm himself. We are, as usual, the irregulars, and we must take our luck together as we have occasionally done in the past.
So we're not going to wait for a warrant.
Not at all. They head out to the undertaker's, and Holmes waits in the cab. Watson goes inside and then comes running back out. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, Brixton Cemetery, he says. Then they go in the cab to the townhouse where Green spied Miss Calder. She answers the door, sees Watson behind Holmes, and lets them in. Schlesinger is standing by the fire reading a book. He looks up at Holmes and Watson. I fancy that you've been misdirected, sir. Possibly if you tried further down the street. That will do. We have no time to waste. You are Henry Peters, late Major Albert Schlesinger, veteran of the Boer War. Your further aliases I will not bore you by repeating. And what is your name? Sherlock Holmes. My friend and companion, I think you know. The house will shortly be under police observation until a warrant is prepared authorizing a search of the premises. Your name does not frighten me, Mr. Holmes, Schlesinger says. I have nothing to hide. What is your business? I'm looking for the Lady Frances Carfax, Holmes says. I'm delighted to hear it. If anyone can find her, I imagine you can. Perhaps you would be so good as to tell me when you do. I've a note against her for nearly £100, and I've got nothing to show for it but a couple of trumpery pendants that the dealer would hardly look at. In other words, costume jewelry.
Yeah.
Which it is not. He's lying. The woman's a leech. Watson is deeply offended. How dare you, sir? You imposed upon us as a man crippled in a military action. You are a fraud. And it makes sense to me that Watson would be irate at stolen valor.
Yep.
It may not have been a military action to satisfy your standards of slaughter, but it was enough for me. And at this point, Schlesinger kind of staggers away from them with the help of a cane. So he's still wounded, but Holmes doesn't buy it. He takes off his hat and he says, I salute your powers of improvisation, sir, and your effrontery, but it will not do. Oh, I'm perfectly serious, Schlesinger says. You find her, and I'm your debtor. I mean to go through this house till I do, Holmes says. You have a warrant, Schlesinger says, sitting down. Watson pulls out his pistol. This will serve until a better one comes, Holmes says. Oh, you're a common burglar, Schlesinger says. And my friend is a dangerous ruffian. Together we mean to go through your house. I love that. I love that. I'm in no position to stop you, Schlesinger says. Search where you will. I have nothing to hide. Where is the coffin that you have had brought to this house? That is none of your business, Schlesinger says, which, I mean, the man's a con man. It's either all Holmes's business or none of it is.
Is it not enough that you force your way into my home, threaten me at gunpoint? You must also know where I keep my coffins? Have some decency, sir.
No. I repeat, where? And here comes the bass drum again. Is it not enough that, yes. Must you now also invade the peace of the day? He says. Where? Holmes persists, and the music becomes more ominous. I shall not tell you, Schlesinger says. Hold him here, Watson, Holmes says, and he leaves the room. Schlesinger, what were you going to say? Schlesinger looks over at Watson. I don't believe you'd use that on an unarmed man, Doctor, and in my condition. I was a soldier in India, sir. I've shot nobler creatures than you, Watson says.
Move and I will shoot you in the arm. Where's the,
Right.
The leg? The shoulder?
Shoulder? Lights, Watson, lights. Holmes shouts from downstairs, and Watson hurries to him with a lantern. I thought I smelled formaldehyde and astringent, Holmes says, leading Watson to a room off the stairs where the coffin sits. They open the lid, but it's not Lady Carfax. It's an elderly woman.
Who is clearly breathing.
Yes! And swallowing. It is not her, Holmes says. And at the top of the
Well,
stairs,
they probably shouldn't bury this one either.
no! The top of the stairs, Miss Calder is saying, get them out! You violated the peace of the dead, Schlesinger says. Yeah, where? Which dead? You will now leave. Where is she? Holmes says, as Mrs. Calder hisses again. Get them out! Her name is Rose Spender. She's my wife's old nurse. She's been with the family for half a century. She died 2 days ago. We are to bury her tomorrow morning. Now get out. Before I ask the police you have summoned to my home to come in and throw you out. Holmes comes back up the stairs with Watson behind, and they leave. At 221B, Holmes is playing with another chess piece, the queen this time, and thinking.
Yeah, it's time to play with dolls again.
Watson is watching him. I've been considering the problem, Watson says. It does seem to me that they could not have murdered Lady Frances and thought to have disposed of her body in that coffin. They would then be faced with burying the old lady. It may be that this burial has no connection with Lady Frances's disappearance. She was, as you know, the most unpredictable creature. Which, I mean, again, this portrayal of Lady Frances just bugs the crap out of me.
Yeah, she's acting like a person and not someone's appendage.
Just because you're a man and you don't know what a woman is going to do next doesn't make her unpredictable. It makes you unimaginative.
And observant.
Yes. And like the queen piece that Holmes is fiddling with, a woman can go wherever she wants, whenever she wants, and do whatever she wants. It may be, Watson continues, that she had second thoughts about Schlesinger. She may have even had some inkling of the kind of man we believe him to be and removed herself from the house. He was, after all, happy to let us search it. What do you think? Holmes is silent. What is your theory then? Watson says. I have none. Holmes gets up abruptly and goes to his room. There are insufficient facts to construct a theory, and he slams the door. That night, Watson's lying on the couch, dozing, but he's still dressed. Holmes comes out, he goes to his desk, and he pulls out a cigar box. Do you think there's something you've overlooked? Watson asks. Holmes once again pulls out his dollies. The pewter figure of the soldier, the stone figure of the bird, then the block upon which he puts the horse, and then the mermaid. Watson kind of turns over and goes back to sleep.
Yeah.
Holmes plays with the pieces in front of him, recounting the conversation Miss Calder had with the woman at the undertaker's and the fact that the coffin was, quote, out of the ordinary. And then his face lights up. What has happened to any brains God has given me, he says. He jumps up, opens the curtains, and yells, Watson, quick! It's life or death. 100 charges on death and 1 on life. And they take a cab to the cemetery where Miss Calder's nurse is about to be buried. The pallbearers bring
Now we're watching the movie Megan is Missing.
Yes. The pallbearers bring the coffin to the edge of the gravesite as the vicar is giving the funeral address and the prayers. They lower the coffin into the grave. Holmes and Watson's cab races up the road into the cemetery. The vicar throws a handful of dirt into the grave, earth to earth, ashes to ashes. But Holmes leaps out of the cab and yells, Stop! Watson follows him to the edge of the grave. Raise that coffin, Holmes yells. What the devil do you mean by this sacrilege? Schlesinger says. He's back in his wheelchair. Miss Calder is watching, looking horrified. Murder, sir. Murder is what I mean. Why keep such a deep coffin for such a small old lady? A sovereign to each of you if you can lift the lid off that coffin in 1 minute.
And they're all like, okay.
Yeah, because they're pallbearers. They don't care. So they raise the coffin and lift the lid. At this point, Schlesinger leaps out of his wheelchair and starts running. Watson runs after him and pulls out his gun. Stop or I'll shoot. Schlesinger keeps going, and Watson shoots him in the back of the leg. This version of Watson apparently has no compunctions about shooting an unarmed man in the back. Like Schlesinger collapses. At last, he's finally wounded. At the gravesite, we find that Lady Carfax is unconscious, lying underneath the body of the nurse. Again, the nurse actress is not very convincing of being dead. She doesn't even get a credit. She should. She took a breath. Surely that was worth union pay. Watson rushes over to her as the pallbearers lift up the dead woman. It's chloroform. She has known literally the terrors of the grave. God knows what this will have done to her. Watson lifts her out of the coffin. Holmes, looking furious and then disappointed, rises up and says, I have failed. Watson carries Lady Carfax out of the cemetery while Holmes takes a walk among the gravestones, presumably flagellating himself. Philip Green, then, is writing to Holmes. We see him and Lady Carfax at the lake where the story opened. Lady Carfax is obviously traumatized. She's nearly catatonic.
And she's with her stalker, which I'm sure is doing wonders for her mental health.
Exactly, yes. I have brought her back here to the country of her childhood, which is one of the most beautiful on this planet, Green writes. There's been a great improvement as a result. A landscape so familiar and so intimate to her will prompt, in time, a full response, I feel sure, as will the company of friends and family who have been most kind and dutiful. Green, you are neither friend nor family.
No.
Her poor brother, the Earl, is beside himself with anger at the criminals and with mortification at his having quarreled with Frances before all this happened. Finally, please accept the enclosed as a token of my gratitude for your saving of my dear Frances, Mr. Holmes. I look forward to our entertainment of you and Dr. Watson in a happier future. I cannot accept it, Holmes is saying to Watson. I refuse to be rewarded for fostering a tragedy. I've never suffered such a complete eclipse of my faculties.
Maybe he's just getting old. But like, maybe you should think about other hobbies, like skiing or something.
Like any eclipse, it's only temporary, Watson says, holding up the letter. There's every hope of a full recovery. I wonder, Holmes says, and he gets up. I wonder. In the final scene, Philip Green is leaning over Lady Carfax in her wheelchair. She's kind of drowsy. She keeps blinking. She doesn't seem to recognize him. He takes a seat on a bench behind her, and the episode closes. Unlike most episodes, there are no Sidney Paget drawings as the credits roll, just Lady Carfax and Philip Green kind of frozen in place.
You could reasonably assume that he's keeping her drugged.
I hated this one.
Yeah, I don't care for this one either. This is awful.
I mean, after evading his attention for 15 years, he's got her back.
Yeah.
And she's damaged.
And in a state where she can't run away again.
Yeah, well, that's the only way he can have her.
Exactly. He's not going to help her get better.
No. And I mean, you think of invalids who are cared for by people they don't like.
Yeah.
And frequently the dislike goes both ways. I was thinking of whatever happened to baby Jane.
Yes.
In this case, it seems like captivity.
Yeah.
She's a
I'm not joking about he's probably keeping her drugged so that she can't leave.
Yes. Yeah, no, I found it horrible and disturbing.
Yeah.
And it left me mightily pissed off.
Yes.
That means my apartment's going to be very clean in short order. But yeah, I like this was filmed when I should have looked this up before we started, but 1991 is when it aired.
Really?
Yeah. And I would have thought that the people would have been up in arms about this portrayal. But again, women, nobody cares.
Yeah. They should have skipped this one. It's not like they adapted every Holmes story. They should have skipped this one.
Yes, they should have picked a different one.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't have the budget to go to Switzerland, I mean, that should have been an indicator too. But And we see over the course of the rest of the series, we call it a series, that the budget is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking.
Yeah.
And Brett is kind of getting looking, his appearance is shifting over the course of the last episodes. When we get to the one about the blackmailer, his physicality is so incredibly different than it has been.
Yeah. And there's one episode, I think in the last season, where it features Charles Gray as Mycroft instead of Holmes because Jeremy Brett wasn't able to
do it. Yes. I was reading in Bending the Willow, like early on, that by the time the series ended, he was on an oxygen mask.
Yeah.
But he in a wheelchair between scenes, and he just kept saying, "But the show must go on, darlings," which, a tribute to Brett, but he was
also not worth killing us.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if the role was killing him or he was just dying, but it's kind of disturbing to watch him die over the course of the series.
Yeah.
And he did say that it took a lot out of him to play Holmes, I think, because, unlike other actors, he just fully immersed himself.
Yeah.
Which was part of the brilliance of his portrayal. But it took a lot out of him.
Yeah.
In ways that it didn't take anything out of Robert Downey Jr. Even Cumberbatch.
Well, Richard Roxburgh was like, "Hey,
it's a role. Yeah. I'm going to go on and play the Prime Minister of Australia for the Crown now."
Well, I was thinking about Roxburgh's performance. We had talked about how that adaptation really leans into the Gothic elements of the Hound story. And I was thinking, I'm not as familiar with Gothic literature as I am with
I am
a particular kind of romantic suspense that descended from it.
I've read
Phyllis Whitney and later Barbara Michaels.
Oh, okay.
But if you look at the relationship between Holmes and Watson in that adaptation, and compare it to those kinds of stories, like Watson is playing the main character, who's usually female, and there's this enigmatic love interest, which Holmes slots into nicely. So I mean, that the relationship between them does have it does play into that Gothic element.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm kind of anxious. The actor, what's his name? Jacob Elordi. He is in 2 Gothic productions now that are coming out. He's in Frankenstein, which is Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, me too. And he's also in Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights, which apparently is like right now it's being audience tested.
And that's the one starring the kid from Adolescence, right?
I think so. Hang on, let me look that one up.
I forget his name.
Yeah, I love that kid. All right, so Wuthering Heights isn't going to be released until 2026. I think it's going through audience testing right now. And yes, you were right, Owen Cooper, young Heathcliff. Yes. Yeah, but
I kept wanting to say Otis, but that's not actually his name.
Oh, it's also got Ewan Mitchell, who plays he was in another Emerald Fennell production. He was in Saltburn as the heir to the estate. He's also in House of the Dragon.
Okay.
As the one-eyed guy. He's got this weird little curly mouth. Every time I see him, I think, oh, it's Mr. Curly Mouth again. But basically, so I would be interested, not that I ever could or would, but getting Jacob Elordi's perspective on playing both Heathcliff and Frankenstein. I think he's playing the monster. He's not playing Frankenstein. Oscar Isaac is playing Frankenstein.
Right.
But, being in these 2 productions that are of a very specific genre, even though they were written very, very far apart, right?
Yeah. There's, it's like what, 50 years in between them?
Yeah, but it's all part of this same Gothic tradition.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I think even Shirley Jackson.
Yep.
Well, obviously Stephen King, Anne Rice, even Toni
Yeah,
Morrison.
horror came out of Gothic literature.
Yeah. V.C. Andrews, remember that?
I like to refer to V.C. Andrews as porn for 12-year-olds.
Yes, oh my God. We circulated her books under the desks.
Yeah, we did that in high school too.
Junior high for us. And I mean, they wouldn't stop me checking them out at the library. I did.
They're shelved in the YA section of stores.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like nobody's even pretending it's anything else.
But yeah, I mean, it's and Sherlock Holmes comes, especially Baskerville, comes out of this tradition.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously Dracula too.
Mm-hmm.
And of course Doyle and Stoker were running around with, what's his name, Henry Irving.
Oh yeah.
Stoker was like in love with Irving or something, and Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
They were all part of a gang.
Yep.
Which was going on at the same time as Wilkie Collins, who was also doing this type of writing, but he was hanging out with Dickens.
Yeah, and he pioneered, I think, had some Gothic elements in his, but he's more in the mystery genre.
Yes, The Moonstone. God, I love that book.
Yeah.
Cool. At some point, we'll have to talk about when Hans Christian Andersen came to visit Charles Dickens and Eve.
Yes. And we spent all this time talking about other stuff because fuck this story.
Yes, yes.
So that's all from us this week. If you've enjoyed the show and haven't subscribed yet, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to support us, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends. And join us next week when we'll be discussing the problem of Thor Bridge.
That one is completely like, I memory hold it.
I think I remember it vaguely.
Okay. Well, oh wait, no, next week we're not. It's the week after, right? Because you've got company next week.
Yes,
and I have a play.
So we will not be doing an episode next week. We will be doing an episode in 2 weeks.
Yes. All right. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.